The main card just started off with a fraud check with the Cuban Slenderman, Robelis Despangi, facing off the Dominican big boy, Waldo Acosta. And let me tell you, when the first round started, Robelis came out hot. He was overextending those overhand right, and man, oh man, he caught him with one good punch, and it didn't really hurt Waldo. But once Waldo noticed that Robelis was overextending his punches, he just completely took advantage of Robelis and took him down, and it just showed the lack of experience Robelis had in the ground. He was struggling very bad. Waldo battering him in the ground. He was punishing him with the ground and pound, giving him a bit of love taps, talking shit to the corner while he's beating his ass, and then next thing you know, Waldo Acosta gets a Kimura lock out of nowhere and almost breaks his arm to the point where I had to turn away from the TV thinking that I'm going to see Robelis' arm just snap in half, but somehow, some way, Robelis had the mental strength to get out of that with the lack of an experience he has in the ground to begin with, but just stayed there and rested in the ground until the round was over. And the second round, we just saw more of the same thing, but Robelis didn't come out as hot anymore. The Cuban Slenderman just started moving with his hands down and just kept on touching him up with some leg kick. He tapped him up with a jab here and there, but the moment he went in for an exchange, Waldo took advantage and took him back down to the ground, where we just saw more of the same action in the first round, and that was about it. The crowd was just simply booing. Nobody wanted to see that fight. And the third round finally started. We saw a more slow-paced, a more not really relaxed, but a more hesitant Robelis Despangi, where he was just fighting from a severe distance. He slowed the pace down a little bit, and where he saw a little bit of a shift in momentum just for a couple of minutes, where he kept on hitting him in the leg, just straight calves non-stop, and to the point where you just see Waldo Acosta's leg have a huge red welt. What did we see happen? Waldo Acosta took his ass down and just sat him there until the round was over. And Robelis really needs to work on his ground. He got exposed really bad on the ground. He's going to need a severe reality check facing some of these lower ranked opponents in the future. But that was about it. Waldo won by decision. And now we move on to essentially what could have been the robbery of the night between the homegrown kid, Sean the Slim Reaper Woodson, facing off the veteran himself, Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know how Sean Wood makes 145 pounds, being the height of 6'3". Just think about it. John Jones is 6'4", and he used to weigh in at 205 pounds. That's a huge difference, and his weight transformation years ago is insane to see. But on to the fight itself. The first round was literally nothing crazy. Sean Woodson fought to his strengths for the most part. He kept the distance, kept on hitting him with a couple of calf kicks, and just stood between the outside and just tapped him up with the jab. There was not much Alex Caceres could really do. But once we got to the second round, it was more of the same up until the last 2 minutes, where Alex Caceres started to break him down a little bit with that jab and just became a little reckless. We saw him throw a little bit of some right hands to call a couple more exchanges for him, but that got him ready for the third round, where he just went guns blazing. I mean, Alex Caceres in the third round was firing at Sean Woodson from all cylinders, and it looked like the homegrown boy was gonna lose the fight. The way this man was throwing punches, Bruce Leroy really came to life in that moment. My boy was throwing elbows from this angle, right hands from another angle, and Sean Woodson looked scared because you know damn well homeboy did not want to lose in his hometown in a fight that he's been asking for years, to fight in the city where he's from. Come on, dude, you know he did not want to lose, and Alex just looked so comfortable. He kept on messing with his mind, and towards the end, it looked like he was gonna win the fight. But then we got to the scorecards, and it basically just showed that Sean Woodson once again scrapes another fight, just like the Jourdain fight. It was a close one, but you know, I could see how Woodson won, but at the same time, you could argue how Alex Caceres did too for that third round. It looked like a 10-8 to me, in my opinion.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
But that was that fight. Sean Woodson ended up asking to fight someone in the top 15, and we'll see who that'll be. He called out Bryce Mitchell. I think that's a fun fight for him, and that's something I would love to see. What do you all think? Let me know. And now we move on to another fraud check between the Polish prospect Mateusz Rebecki facing off the crafty veteran and Diego Ferreira, and this fight was a hell of a fight. Mateusz Rebecki in the beginning came out headhunting for Diego Ferreira's chin. Like, he wanted to get this fight over with quick, and it showed. He hit him with so many haymakers in the beginning. It was left hook after right hook to the body, and then he caught him with a flush right hand to the chin. And my boy Diego fell down, but he said, "Nah, we staying in the match." He reassessed himself. He was able to get up from the flurry from the ground, and once they got up, Diego Ferreira, and the crafty veteran he is, still on the back foot, manages to hit him with a couple of check right hands, and even he leads onto a nice little leg kick. Like, he messed up Rebecki in the end of that first round to the point where Rebecki's eye was literally swollen, and he couldn't see out of that eye coming into the second round. But when you come in a flurry in the first round like that, coming in hot, the second round ain't gonna be so good to you. And it showed for Mateusz Rebecki. He got gassed out bad, and Diego Ferreira took advantage of it completely. He started moving forward. He tapped him up with the jab a little bit, caught him with some leg kicks, hit him with some combinations to the body, and then he moved upstairs. It was just defying all odds at its finest. It was a beautiful fight to begin with. But Mateusz Rebecki had a heart of a lion, man. He stood into that fight. He still caught him with a couple of punches, and where he almost knocked out Ferreira again. But Ferreira, once again, reassesses himself and makes it to the third round, where in the third round, it was all him. Rebecki couldn't come up with shit. Literally, Diego Ferreira was just piecing him up, like, left and right. Like, he didn't know what was coming for him, man. It was raps. It was raps. And then Rebecki tried to shoot for a takedown, where Diego reverses it and gets him on his back and just piles him with a ground and pound. And then he hits him with this nasty knee, and again reassesses him with a ground and pound. Diego Ferreira with the third round finish. Bada bing, bada boom. We move on to the next fight between Carlos Olberg and Alonzo Menifield. And man, this fight ended before I can even lock my eyes onto the TV. I turned away for 1 second to look at my computer, and all of a sudden, I just see Alonzo Menifield curled up in the corner of the cage like a little ball, and the fight was over. But luckily, ladies and gentlemen, we got our eyes onto the replay, and the replay showed this. Alonzo Menifield came out hot and reckless and left his chin loose, and Carlos Olberg himself hit him with a check left hook, and night-night went to Alonzo Menifield. Goodbye. After that, we just saw Carlos Olberg ask for someone in the top 10. Who will it be? Who will it be? Oh, geez Louise. Who will it be? I don't know. But whoever it is, who do you guys think? Speaking of the top 10, you might as well put Joaquin Buckley there, because the performance he put on against Boyth really speaks volumes of his character. Think about it. He was begging to be on this card. He even went out of his way at the UFC 300 press conference to be on this card in his hometown of St. Louis. And the UFC gave him no slouch. They gave him an unranked opponent in Boyth, who's 6'5", a deadly striker who's knocked out every single one of his opponents in the first round in the UFC so far in his career. And this man, Joaquin Buckley, went out there with the crowd screaming his name, and I've never seen a crowd like that. A U.S. crowd, I should say, scream like that in my life. The way they were screaming for Joaquin Buckley was just like superstar aura status, man. Like, that shit was crazy to me. And to put the cherry on top, he went out there and backed it up. In the first round, Boyth came in with a flying knee, and he took him down, and he won the round just off of that. And going into the second round, it was more of the same thing, but Boyth really struggled. He was very one-dimensional from his performances, from what it showed. Boyth kept on trying to counter him with that right hand, and there's so much he could have done. He could have really stood in the outside, tapped him up with the jab to build up some more combinations, but no, he was very stagnant. And the only thing he had going for him in that second round is when he almost got Joaquin Buckley with that armbar. But when we got to the third round, people, this fight just turned into complete chaos. Like, Joaquin Buckley went out there trying to finish this fight, and man, he almost did it twice. There was one combination where he caught Boyth with a right hand, and then to set up the combo, he throws in like this left hook, but it was more like a slap, and it dropped Boyth. And then he started trying to get him on the ground and pound, and then they were flipping and flapping between that. And then when they finally got up, Joaquin Buckley once again catches him with a check right hand off the back foot, and Boyth was not responsive. He went back down and he almost got TKO'd again in the fight. And then we just saw a couple of illegal kicks from Boyth off the ground where they brought them both back up, and then Joaquin Buckley's like, alright dude, there's 20 seconds left, I had enough, and he kind of just stood his ground there to make sure he got the victory. And Joaquin Buckley did just that. And to make matters even better, the moment he went on the mic, the first thing he did with the crowd chanting his name and screaming for him, he called out Conor McGregor. Like, this man is really trying to set himself for life, and I appreciate that. Hey, I'm not going to go out my way and say he deserves it, but it would be a fun matchup to see. Basically just call him a hoe, and that was raps.
No.
And finally, we move on into the main event where we got to see the Houston native himself, Derek
My balls was hot.
Lewis, facing off a Brazilian NPC heavyweight that finally made it out of the Apex by the name of Rodrigo Nascimento. And guys, I'm gonna be quite honest. I've never heard of this dude until this morning, and from what I saw, he's just a Brazilian heavyweight that does jiu-jitsu. And the last time we saw Derek Lewis fight a Brazilian NPC heavyweight, he shattered his dome with his knee. So, on to the fight. But in the first round, nothing much really happened. Nascimento and Lewis were just clinching each other for the most part. But the only cool thing I saw was that Derek Lewis literally pulled out a judo sweep out of nowhere. And that was embarrassing for Nascimento, man. Because how can you consider yourself a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter if you're getting judo sweep by Derek Lewis of all people, man? You should be stripped of your belt at that point. But that was literally round one. In the second round, we saw more of the prime Derek Lewis himself just throwing haymakers and bombs at Nascimento, where he got stunned for a little bit, but he kind of recovered when he took Derek Lewis down, and he had to hold him down there to catch a deep breath because this man Nascimento was breathing hard as shit, man. You could see his mouth wide open when he had his back, man. But that was it really for the second round. But to the third, man, this is when the fight got good, because Derek Lewis just went on a rampage and just started throwing bombs after bombs and bombs, and finally he handed that loaded right hand, and Nascimento just went to bed. And that was it for the fight. And in the post-fight interview was the funniest part. This man Derek Lewis did not care, man. He took out his pants, he took out the cup from his pants, and he threw it at the UFC media team. And when he got on the mic, he was just so tired. He was like, man, I'm too old for this. And that was it. That was just UFC St. Louis for you. And that's all that I got to say, boys. So, good game, boys. Catch you later. Deuces.